Introduction. These 12 lessons are designed for people who have never used Photoshop before. Photoshop itself is a very powerful program. It can do anything that you can do in the darkroom and several other things which can be used for advertising or in any other area such as art where you wish to manipulate the pictures themselves. While it's a very powerful program, it is not a very intuitive program. It is somewhat hard to learn. So basically, we're going to have to start off from the very start. We need to look at Photoshop itself and begin to understand how the tools work. To begin with, we'll open Photoshop. Now, the Photoshop screen should look something like this. There may be slight differences based on the last person that used it, as when a person exits Photoshop, it remembers what they had, and when they come back again, it's the layout they left. But this should be the basic layout. You have a work area, which is where the pictures will appear. Over on the left-hand side, you have the tools that you can work with. The tools are divided into several different areas. Selection tools, which allow you to select parts of the picture. Tools such as for dodging, burning, cropping, and basically manipulating the picture. And others tools such as lettering and adding special shapes to it and such, which are not particularly part of photography, but which can be very useful. A lot of the names of these tools are very familiar if you have worked in the darkroom, but may not make much sense otherwise. To start with, you have right up here what they call marquees. Marquees are basic tools for selection. You'll notice this little black triangle down in the lower corner. If you'll click on it, I'm not open. If you click on it, you'll notice a box opens up and it shows you other tools. These tools are grouped together in the same box and have basically similar functions. In these marquee tools, you'll have the rectangular marquee, an elliptical or circular marquee, a single row for selecting straight lines vertically and basically horizontally. Next to the marquee, you have the Move tool. This is used for moving things around on the screen. Underneath the marquee, you have lassos. Lassos are also selection tools. Again, as with the marquee, you have several of them. You have the freehand lasso, which basically is for freehand drawing. You have the polygon lasso, where the lasso itself creates straight lines between points which you put in. And you have the magnetic lasso. The magnetic lasso is attracted to different shades in the picture. The magic wand, this is also another selection tool. And basically it has a couple of magic wand type selection tools under here. The magic wand, you click into it and it basically selects all of that shade. Here you have a cropping tool. This is used for changing size in the picture or getting rid of areas that you don't want. The slice tools are used more in web production. The eyedropper is used for selecting colors. Again, it has multiple different types of eyedroppers. So the basic eyedrop tool, sampling tool, rulers, notes, and counting tools. The primary one you're going to be using will be the eyedropper. This little piece that looks like a band-aid is called the healing stamp. It has, again, a number of different healing tools. Spot healing, the healing brush, which I find most useful. Patch tools, which are for patching areas of the picture, and a basic red eye tool for correcting red eye. Next to it is the brush. The brush also is grouped with pencils and other color tools. This is for painting in colors. The stamp. Two basic ones here, the cloning stamp and the pattern stamp. The cloning stamp is usually the one that is on top. Next to it you have the history brush and art history brush. Basically these brushes you can paint back through the different steps you've done to the original picture. The eraser, that's what it means. It's for erasing pieces. You can also erase background, or a magic eraser, which basically is a little bit like the magnetic lasso. It can erase certain colors or tones. The gradient tool, you'll get into using this one later. This has to do with how you blend colors. This little blur tool, or the teardrop, this one also contains the sharpening and smudge tools under it. Basically this is a brush where you can blur part of the picture, sharpen part of the picture, or sort of distort part of the picture. Next to it, the dodging tool. Dodging tool is grouped with dodging, burning, and what we call the sponge. The primary ones you'll use here are dodging and burning. These are photographic terms. Dodging is used to eliminate or lighten part of the picture, while burning is used to darken it. Here you have some specific tools to Photoshop. The pen tool. Pen tool is used for creating paths. Underneath that, the direct selection tool. This is used for manipulating the path that you've created. Next to it, the text tool. This is for creating text in your picture. There's a horizontal text, a vertical text tool, so on. Again, as you go under there, you get the other text tools. And right below that, there it shows up. So horizontal, vertical text, and basically text mask, where it puts the letter on but there's actually nothing there. So this can be filled or deleted or so on. Now right below that, this sort of odd blob is a basic shaping tool. So basically custom shapes. This is for creating shapes in your picture. Then a few below here which I have not really used that much. These are rotation tools which are used for 3D effects. So the 3D rotation tool and the 3D orbit tool for round shapes. The hand is for moving the picture itself. The zoom tool, this lets you enlarge or decrease the size of the picture. And beneath here we have the colors. Traditionally they're set to black and white, but they can be set to any color you wish. You can use two colors at a time, a foreground and a background. Right below that you have the quick mask tool for putting on a quick mask, which again you will learn how to do a little bit later. Up at the top, these commands may be more familiar to you from other programs. These are basic commands which can be used with anything in the program. The file, this is used for opening pictures, for printing them, and so on. Edit, basic editing tools that you come in. The image tools, these are a little different than you may have used. We will again explain those as we get into it. Layers, the same thing. They are unique to Photoshop, and as you get into it, we'll explain how to use them. Selection tools for adjusting the selections that you make. Filters, these are special effects tools, and basically others that go through here. View determines how you see it on the screen. Windows determines the boxes that you see, the help commands, and so on. Now, over on the right hand side, you will see a series of palettes. The ones that should be open when you start off, you need the history palette and the layers palette. We've also got the colors palette open here. If these palettes are not open, then you will go to the windows and open them. You basically open them by clicking on them. Now, there are a number of different palettes, but most of them you're not going to be using except in very special cases. The history and the layers palettes are almost always used. Alright, now to work on a photograph in Photoshop, it has to be opened in Photoshop. In other words, there are a lot of different ways to open pictures. But unless you open it in Photoshop, the Photoshop can't see it and as a result can't do anything with it. So I'm going to open a picture I'm working on now. This is not something you will be doing at this point in Photoshop, but primarily I'm opening it so that you can see what happens in the palettes over on the right hand side. Okay, once a picture gets open, Photoshop becomes active and you can now use any of the tools, and you can see commands over on the side. You can open multiple pictures in Photoshop. So let's see. You can open multiple pictures in Photoshop. With the newer versions, however, they have added a feature which is a little bit annoying for me, but is there. When you open the pictures, they all immediately group together into a sort of palette of their own. Now, the problem is, quite often when you need to work with pictures, you need to have more than one picture open in the workspace at the same time. To do that, you have to grab the picture and literally pull it apart so that you have the pictures down here and active. And we'll just close that one. Okay, now if these pictures grow too close to each other, they will immediately go back together, if we can do it there. So you may have to keep pulling them apart from time to time. View will let you see the picture full size, which you can use for working on and so on. However, let's go to this picture first. Okay, the reason we're opening this picture, I want you to notice what is happening over here under the Layers palette. The Layers palette, you can build up one picture on top of another, but Photoshop treats each one of them as a separate image, creating them as a layer. You can only work on one layer at a time. The layer that you can work on is called the active layer, and it will be the one that is a different color than all the rest. So for example, to see what's on a layer, you can just turn the eyes on or off. So turn off the eye, and you notice that's what's on that layer. Okay, another one. Turn it off. You can see this thing. So turning them off or on, you can see what's on each of the layers. You can also change which layer you want to work on simply by clicking on it. It becomes the different color. It's now the active layer. So anything you do will change that one layer and none of the others. Again, you can only work on one layer at a time. So you may have to, if you get a lot of different layers, it's a good idea to give them names so that you don't have to turn the eyes on and off every time you work on one. Okay, so now what you can do with the History palette. Well, I've got this active layer, then let's say I want to do some work with it. For example, I'm going to go in and I am going to darken the picture a little by burning it. Now, you'll notice I've got the burn tool. I can set the size up here. So I go down, it gets smaller. So I go up, it gets bigger. You also can choose from hard edges or from soft edges. Or you can also choose patterns brushes. So Let's get into a large one, and I'm going to go on to here, and I'm going to begin darkening the picture. Very slowly burning it in to make it darker. You'll notice at times Photoshop has to catch up with what I'm doing, but we'll darken it in. Now you'll notice what's happening over here on the history palette. Each time I go with the tool over this picture, it records as a step over here. Now if I want to get rid of what I just did, I simply have to click up on the steps. So that's what I started with. That's the steps that I went through, and I can remove any number that I want in between. The history palette is very useful in that it can let you go through several steps. If you decide you don't like them, you can simply get rid of them. One individual step can always be undone with Edit. You can undo it. With the history palette, you can undo multiple steps. How many steps depends on how many you set into it. Generally, if this is a school computer, it will have around 25 steps set into it, and you probably won't be allowed to change them. So anything up to 25 steps you can remove immediately. You can always go back to the original picture by clicking on the thumbnail at the top. That'll take you back to what the original image was. Okay, at this point, now that you understand a little about the tools and about Photoshop Workspace, you're ready to start into your first lesson.